Well, good afternoon, everyone, or good evening, or good morning down under. Great to be with you for SADS Live 116. I'm Mike Ackerman, genetic cardiologist at the Mayo Clinic and director of Mayo Clinic's Winland Smith Rice Genetic Heart Rhythm Clinic and the Winland Smith Rice Sudden Death Genomics Laboratory. And as the previous times, we're here, and I'm here on behalf of the SADS Foundation, the Sudden Arrhythmia Death Syndrome Foundation, your organization, the largest nonprofit advocacy organization devoted to families with so-called SADS conditions. I prefer to think of them as genetic heart conditions, long QT syndrome, you know who you are out there, CPVT, Brugada syndrome, Anderson-Tawil syndrome, the arrhythmogenic cardiomyopathies, those with ARVC, whatever you have, if you have found us and this to be your home, welcome back. We started this in March of 2020, and we've been going strong. Initially out of that thing, remember, COVID-19 pandemic and the uncertainty and the fear and the anxiety, and now we've learned so much together. We'll probably relearn a lot in time. But then we as an organization move from all things SADS and I mask, you mask, we all mask together. And I think I have my lotion here of washing hands and all of that, to your questions that you needed timely answers for. And it's been an honor and a privilege for us to do this with you and to do this together. And now we're every other week, and we interview some weeks, and we answer your questions other weeks, and whatever is on top of mind. Well, it's a big, big day today. Guess what? Today is the last day at Mayo Clinic after 3 years of universal mask wearing, where starting Monday, if the patients don't want to wear their masks, they don't have to in the clinic. Of course, where we had masks on before, we'll still be wearing those masks, immunocompromised operating rooms and so forth, but the universal mandate of masking ends. Yay. The day after Easter Sunday. So today is the last day. So I have this one. I won't need it. I have this one. Oh, remember that? Ah, yes, SADS Foundation. I won't need it. Even got a little, my wife got me this one, maybe to match some of my outfits, but I'm colorblind, so I'm not even sure if this matches. So, but they're done. And as you probably gathered, I'm really, really excited. Some probably have argued that these masks should have been off a long time ago. Others will certainly be wearing them in the clinic on Monday, and not just next Monday, but probably Monday 2025 and beyond. There's obviously mixed views on the masking. I, for one, can't wait to see my entire patient and their families face. Been anticipating their smiles. We now know how to decode smiles from looking at the eyes, but now I get to see them. So not only my video patients, and I love my families who I get to do a video consult, just the sweetest girl just before this show where we did it by video and I got to see her entire face, but then the patient before that was on campus in the room, and we were all masked up for one more outpatient clinic day, and so could not see their expressions. And it's time, not just by two-dimensional Zoom, that we get to see each other, but that we really, really get to see each other. So I'm excited about that. But enough of that. Now, what are we going to do today? Some of you are coming on, and hello to Rachel and the others, and then we will get to your questions. But in the 5-minute debriefing that we had when I connected, Erin, who is one of our best people on the SADS Foundation staff, you met her 2 weeks ago. They and the SADS team, under the leadership of my CEO, Alice Laura, I guess they concocted a little bit of a surprise and a little trick where we were going to be doing an interview. And I thought I was interviewing somebody like I normally do, but apparently, this very special guest, who I really, really enjoy a lot, have the privilege of calling her one of my patients and friend, is interviewing me. So this probably will be a very, very short interview. And then we can get to the far more important things of your questions. So on this Good Friday, and blessings to all of you on this Good Friday, let's begin and see what Erin and her team is up to. Erin. Oh,
Hello.
so welcome to SADS Live, Julie.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you. I didn't realize it was a surprise for you, so I'll try to not pull too many fast ones on you.
Oh,
And
well, feel
in an
free.
email, we
It
were
is.
just told that you're a Taekwondo master, so I will try not to provoke you either. Um, do you have any other hidden talents?
Well, we'll see what we talk about to see if I reveal any of those other hidden talents.
See, this is all about revealing, fun facts about you that you had the SAD staff reveal their fun facts. So now you can be on the other side of the
Hmm.
stage here. We'll start off with some very serious questions. What is your favorite chamber of the heart?
Well, there are many chambers of the heart. I love all of them. I love the heart. But I suppose we'll have to go with the left ventricle.
Ah, okay. Perfectly reasonable. What was your first paid job?
Ooh, first paid job would probably have been mowing lawns and shoveling snow. And way back in the day, I sold those greeting cards door to door to try to get enough money to buy a metal detector. You get prizes if you sold enough card. Sixth grade, I was a newspaper deliverer for the Tuesday afternoon shopper in our
Wow.
small town. But then summers, walking beans. Nobody even probably knows what that is because now you don't walk beans, but we would walk beans down the rows. I was a foreman for detasseling corn, and was in charge of a crew of 50 14-year-olds. The job that made sure that I would stay in school, though, was a summer of hot tar and rubber roofing.
Oh, that'll do it.
Yeah, that reminded me. I worked with an amazing crew of men, and as just the worker, they were great, great guys. But I thought, wow, now this is what you call really hard work, and I think I will choose to try to study super hard instead.
When did you know you wanted to be a doctor?
Oh, early, um, probably as a teenager. They had this program in high school or junior high. I think I was 13. And they called it the Gifted and Talented Program. So that was a mistake, probably. I don't know whether I'm either, but that was the program that I got into. And they let us do something that we wanted to do. And so I wanted to shadow the small town surgeon, Dr. Nugent. And on one of those days, I walked in not feeling great, was actually wearing a mask in that operating room watching a person getting a gallbladder surgery. And back in that day, it wasn't laparoscopic. The person receiving it was, let's just say, not small. And the amount of yellow, as in the fat,
Oh,
was a lot. And it kind of overwhelmed me. And I remember the charge nurse saying, "For crying out loud, he fell into the field," as young Mike Ackerman fainted and collapsed, and then sat down there, head between my knees, thinking, age 13, my career is over before it even gets to begin.
very
Um,
nice.
so that was kind of the early start of it, but things obviously got clarified in high school and college. And actually, in college, I had a brief time where I thought I was going to be called into the ministry and proclaim the good news. And then I sort of discovered that indeed I would be a minister, but a different kind of one, that medicine would be my ministry, and I would try to be an extension of his healing hand on anybody who I would have the privilege to touch and take care of.
And as one of your patients, I can say I'm grateful that that is the way you chose to go. And yes, you can do both.
Yeah.
Star Trek or Star Wars?
Oh, Star Wars.
Okay. What is the best sandwich?
Reuben sandwich.
Okay. What number am I thinking of?
I'm not like one of those mentalists that you saw that. I saw this one guy doing that on, I think it was, well, I can't say because I was watching The Bachelor with my wife, and he was doing that with the things, and blew me away. So number 9.
No. What is your favorite channelopathy?
Well, that's the trick one, because I love all of my families and I'm fascinated by all of the channelopathies. But my first love is long QT syndrome, and that's really the channelopathy and the boy behind it that was my aha moment in November of 1996, when I knew who I was going to become when I grew up. And it was because of Jonathan and his channelopathy, which turned out to be long QT syndrome.
Are you a Marvel Comics fan or a DC Comics fan?
I like all of them, but my oldest son Jager is super Marvel, so I better say Marvel. So I'll go with Marvel.
Okay. So in that vein, Spider-Man, he has his notorious villain Doc Ock.
Yeah.
Is it okay if we call you Doc Ack?
You guys can call me anything you want. I've been called a lot of things. The kids tend to call me Dr. Mike, but I like that one. I like that. But speaking of Spider-Man, I use the quote from his uncle a lot in my lectures. With great power comes great responsibility. And so, no, I've seen all of the Spider-Man movies.
Well, it's better that Doc Ack better than Doctor Strange, which is also in the Marvel universe.
That's true, and I haven't ever quite gotten used to Doctor Strange, so I'm glad they don't. I'm glad that one hasn't caught on with me.
Okay, my final question, and then we'll let you off the hook, and you can answer some real questions from people. Describe the rest of your life in 5 words.
Wow. Faith, family, making a difference. Yeah, we'll do that.
Excellent. Yeah. Excellent. Well, I can declare you better known now. We all are more aware of what brought you to where you are, and put you on the spot a little bit. And thank you for indulging our little bit of a surprise for you. A little late for April Fool's Day, but.
Yeah, no, well, thank you, Julie. And before I let you go, and I see some questions coming in, a little about your journey.
Oh.
So tell me what led from, I know you have the channelopathy that everybody now knows is my first love, long QT syndrome.
Right.
You have the second most common type, if I'm remembering correctly, of LQT2.
Correct.
How did you decide, or when did you decide to go from a patient living with it and as I've come to know you, thriving despite it, to engaging SADS in a new way? Because you and your interaction with the SADS Foundation is a relatively new chapter in your life, or more recent, right? And what led to that?
Well, I was not diagnosed until I was years old, just a couple of years ago. And
31.
Exactly, right. Um, I have a 30-year-old son, so and I'm going to be a grandmother. Fun fact, I'm going to be a grandmother at the end of the summer. So
Oh, congratulations.
thanks. I'm very excited.
That is, that I can tell you is next level amazing.
Yeah, I just
This one's my oldest. She's arriving in about 3 hours for Easter weekend.
excellent.
Yeah, and baby sister, granddaughter
Oh,
number 2 is 7 months old. This is a dated picture.
oh my goodness.
So
It flies.
Juniper, the 2 girls are coming any moment. So, yep,
That's wonderful.
yeah. So congratulations. That is
Thanks.
incredible.
So obviously, I'm concerned that the baby doesn't inherit the variant. My son has it. He's asymptomatic, but so when I was first diagnosed, they thought I had epilepsy, and it was sort of by chance that I came to, and it was a long road that I won't go into, but that I was diagnosed with long QT, and I'd never heard of it. And if you Google it, which I don't recommend, it is terrifying. And so I went to find other sources of information that might be more straightforward instead of, potentially fatal, all the lovely words that they use in the headlines. And one of the first things I did find was the SADS Foundation. And I didn't realize how unique it was in that it offered in one spot a lot of information, a lot of resources, a lot of help for all manner of questions and situations you might have. And I'm also, on Facebook, and I see a lot of questions and misunderstandings from people on Facebook. And I thought, if only people knew more, to go to the SADS Foundation, to go click on that website and find out more, and to educate themselves more about what they are facing or what they might not be facing. And I wanted to help that effort in whatever way I could. So right now I'm trying to make transcripts of some of the great questions and answers that you've gotten. It's a little slow going, but so that people can just look it up and not have to go through the entire video, that kind of thing. But I'm just so grateful that the SADS Foundation is there for everybody that has a condition like this, and that you amazingly are hanging in there for all these years, giving your time and your knowledge and helping people who are sometimes terrified, and sometimes confused, and sometimes a little of everything.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's
my
easy.
little tiny piece is nothing.
Your piece is huge, and it's easy to give my time, and when I have the privilege of taking care of precious people like you and the SADS family. So thank you, and thank you for that, what you're taking on of getting those questions compiled. And as you're doing it, it'll be fascinating to see all of them. And there's some repeaters, but I've been amazed over 2 years, 3 years now, how novel the questions continue to be.
Right.
And those that are repeaters are worth repeating,
Right.
and distilling, and hopefully the answers to the repeated questions from 3 years ago, I'm still giving similar answers, unless we've learned something new and different
There you
that has
go.
taught us that the answer now needs to be different than what we shared in the past. But Julie, all the best to you. Thanks for joining SADS in this way, and thanks for the interview, and Easter blessings to you.
And to you.
Thanks a lot. And I will turn to the questions that are coming through, and it looks like it's set up, everybody, that they may be question and answers like we normally do. And it looks like all of a sudden either my vision has just disappeared, or things got blurry. But if it's blurry, so be it. We'll go with blurry because my screen is blurry all of a sudden. But or you may be asking me a personal question, it looks like. But I'll start right at the top, as I always do. And Carol, you get the first one. Oh, there, it's better. Maybe I just had a transient ischemic attack, or a TIA, as they call it. So Carol, you get the first follow-up question after Julie's interview, which, surprise as it was, but thanks, Julie. I enjoyed it and appreciate you. And Carol would love to see me. Well, I'd love to see you and have the privilege of taking care of your son, LQT2, 4 years old, on the beta blocker I like, and asking about being restricted. Can't really comment about your son specifically. What I can do is that in general, give you the encouragement that in our program, after I'm pleased with my confidence in the diagnosis, my assessment of my patient's future, as best I can do the weather forecast and predict the future, and the tailoring of that child, that adult's, that grandparent's therapy, my full expectation is for Johnny, Sally, whatever their name is, to live large and to be very active at all levels, at highest levels, championship team high levels. The girl who played hockey, I don't know if you can see that on the back, long QT, played European professional hockey. So that's my dream for your son. And it would be an honor to directly take care of him. Kate, and speaking of that, I have to comment, just earlier this week, saw somebody who was a SADS live person for, I don't know, 2+ years. And then I saw her and just shared a card expressing what an impact the Friday SADS live sessions had on her and her family's life, and giving her the confidence to overcome the profound fear and anxiety that she was being gripped with sort of Dr. Google and Dr. Internet, and the freedom that she's experienced after being part of our SADS live community, and then coming here to give me the privilege to be her patient. So it's truly a very special. Kate, number 2, twins. Oh, congrats. 4 months old, LQT2, like their dads. It's new. Dad looks like never had a symptom. What do I expect my babies to have? What's really, really nice in long QT syndrome is, unlike other genetic heart conditions where how it has behaved throughout the family, good or bad, is predictive of that owner's forecast. That is not true in long QT syndrome. So just because it's gone a certain way, especially in those families that have been filled with tragic expressions, that doesn't mean that that's the destination for your child. And so each owner of their genetic marker declares their story of its expressivity. And I think one of the things that I find so encouraging in almost all of our conditions is the tragic expressions are almost always, not always, but almost confined to before diagnosis and before treatment. After diagnosis and after implementation of correct treatment, tragedy almost never happens. Meanwhile, they're living large, not confined to being a sedentary couch potato. Diane's question is, again, today's LQT2 day. I guess everybody feels with Julie's genetic marker that we have to all be LQT2, but Diane's son also has that version, type 2 long QT syndrome, had a cardiac arrest at age 23 in the swimming pool. Now that, I'll tell you, is uncommon. Almost always, if an event happened in swimming, in water, while swimming in a swimming pool, that's LQT1. In fact, that was my very first patient, November 1996. Was a 10-year-old who drowned in our local swimming pool, nearly drowned while racing his younger brother, pulled out, defibrillated poolside way back then, because Rochester was one of the first cities in the United States to equip all of its first responders with AEDs in the squad cars. Yeah, as in 27 years ago, and resuscitated him. And so that was swimming and long QT syndrome. And we didn't know about that link between LQT1 and swimming back then. In fact, that was a paper that our program published as one of my first papers after my PhD time, on demonstrating the link between LQT1 and swimming as a trigger. So it's not a perfect link, but it's a really good one. So when somebody does that in the swimming pool for LQT2, maybe you start to wonder, was it the swimming pool, or were they just happening to be in a swimming pool when there was a startle or an auditory trigger, or being, somebody spooking you in the swimming pool rather than the act of swimming in the swimming pool. Now, of course, everything we write about and publish, there are exceptions. So yes, just like there's a strong link between swimming and LQT1, it's not perfect. Yes, there's a strong link between postpartum for young women and LQT2, but sometimes, rarely, it can happen in LQT1. But when it's the exception, I always try to do the detective work and look for another reason that might fit better to keep that link that we know about intact. SADS Foundation with the reminder to make the questions easy for me. And yes, it's recorded. And now I get a question from, hi, Rachel. At what age did you decide to be a doctor? Probably, if I had to say what age was it, it probably was age 13, 14. But then, as you might have heard me say with Julie, I had that brief phase in college. I went to a small private college in Decorah, Iowa. Yay, Luther College. And I thought perhaps between my sophomore and junior year that I was leaning towards becoming a minister, an evangelist, proclaim the good news. But then I always loved the sciences. And I thought, well, what if I could do both? And maybe I could be a healer, but in a different way, but also maybe be an extension of the great physician's healing touch. Whereas in the Old Testament, in the Bible, he's referred to as the great physician. So college, what kind of physician? That evolved during medical school and graduate school, because I loved almost every rotation that I did. But then I knew no surgery for me. I don't know if you can see it. Well, I'm pretty good right now, but I had this tremor thing, and I thought, I don't think surgery is in my future. So nope, not as many people think. Are you a heart surgeon? No, I'm not a heart surgeon. I am a cardiologist, but I am a genetic cardiologist, which is a self-proclaimed title, because nobody has declared a specialty of genetic cardiology yet. They should. It is one. And when I joined the staff at Mayo Clinic in 2000, and my boss who hired me, I love him, Dr. Jamil Tajik, says, why should I hire a pediatric cardiologist? Because that's what I am, in adult cardiology. And I said, Dr. Tajik, I'm not a pediatric cardiologist. I'm a genetic cardiologist. And he goes, oh, I like that. So he liked it back then. I still like it now. That's what has unfolded. For long QT2 or any kind, what's a safe decongestant that we can take? Honestly, any of them. And I think we've just sort of messed this up. I love the website, www.crediblemeds.org. There's an app, Credible Meds. It has a good list of medications. that we ought to avoid. But really the ones that I'm more concerned about are any ones that you or I would need a prescription to obtain. I'm not really worried about any over-the-counter remedy. Now, I wouldn't stack the deck of taking multiple over-the-counter remedies that are on the QT drug list, but taking one in isolation, almost zero anxiety about that. And that we've been working on trying to get this messaging out there. We've had too many long QT families that have left their child's ADD, ADHD untreated and then have this devastating consequences. Too many families having their mental health issues suboptimally treated with a QT safer anxiety medicine, and yet it's not as good of a one, and so forth. And so I always start with simple principles with the decongestants. If you don't need anything, great. I try not to use anything to start with. Vicks Vapor Rub, great. Would I scale it up with the decongestant? I probably would with the Ackerman nasal spray, systemic absorption to the heart, 0. But if I needed to take a pill, decongestant, would I be comfortable with phenylephrine or Sudafed? Yes. I'm not afraid of those. I don't think you need to be afraid of them. Robitussin DM for cough, cold, NyQuil. Really, don't let the children be miserable, or the adults with the cold. That's as general. Now, everything needs to be tailored. If a person had untreated, fragile long QT syndrome, spooky QT intervals, could the decongestant nudge them and poke the bear? Yeah, I suppose it could. Have I seen that in my program? 1,700 plus long QT patients? Not that I'm aware of. It's being asked now, is atenolol still an effective drug for long QT? Do you recommend Nadolol? So here's the long QT, not again for LQT2. I've said it for 20 plus years. I'll keep saying it. I do not like the beta 1 selective beta blockers that they're called atenolol or metoprolol. I've never prescribed either of those now in probably over 15 years. There will never be a randomized study comparing atenolol to the one I like better, which are Nadolol or propranolol. Those two are the preferred. They are the preferred by the largest long QT centers throughout the world. Mine, Arthur Wilde's in Amsterdam, Peter Schwartz or Silvia Priori's in Italy. Any program that takes care of lots of long QT patients, we all have landed on the experiential observation that clearly Nadolol and propranolol are better. And so that can I prove it? Prove it with the classic randomized, double-blinded, controlled study? No, can't prove it. It won't happen. None of us will ever subject our patients to being put on the beta blockers, atenolol or metoprolol that we're convinced don't work as well. And so I would not use those. Now, between Nadolol and propranolol, I like both of them. So I will laterally move between them if one agrees with the other better. In fact, for the third most common form of long QT, the sodium channel version, also known as LQT3, I actually tend to like propranolol better than Nadolol, unless I'm going to add a direct second medicine called mexiletine, because then I will use Nadolol and mexiletine. So bottom line, don't like it, would never be pleased with someone on it. If somebody calls me up and says, yes, I was on a beta blocker, and yes, I just broke through my beta blocker, and I would ask them, what beta blocker are you on or were you on? 8 times out of 10, they would say atenolol or metoprolol. I just don't like them, and I think the evidence is there, but proving it with the classical strength of evidence that we have always held our medicine to, I can't offer that proof to try to convince the prescriber who feels that our preference for Nadolol and Propranolol is not based on strong evidence. It may not be based on the strongest kind of evidence that we like in medicine and science, but sometimes without strong evidence, we're still right. And I think we'll be proven to be right on that one. Jennifer's asking, skip forward, sorry about that. Is there a correlation between right bundle branch block and Brugada? No, the correlation is a good question, is sometimes a Brugada, a right bundle branch block pattern has been mislabeled or confused as looking a little bit Brugada-like, and then somebody bites on it and overdiagnoses the patient as having Brugada when they really, really don't. Mohammed's wondering how strong or weak is GPD1L associated with Brugada. Thanks, Mohammed. Initially, the strength of evidence as published by the discoverer, good friend, great scientist, Dr. Barry London, and the pedigree, established enough evidence that we all thought that was going to be the second Brugada syndrome gene, GPD1L mediated Brugada syndrome. But over the passage of time, and we're now talking 10, 15 years, it's looking like that strength of evidence isn't fully satisfying the benchmark that entities like ClinGen have been using to sort of do this vetting process. In other words, there have been a lot of genes published as disease causative genes for a lot of diseases, not just heart diseases, for which over the passage of time, the strength of evidence isn't holding up. And so it's now, I think, classified as a limited evidence gene or a disputed evidence gene. And my view is for those genes that have been called into dispute, including those discovered by my team, and we published most of the minor long QT genes, many of the other minor genes for other of the syndromes, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, long QT, even Brugada. That's kind of then game on. That's the challenge to say, if I still think it is the disease causative gene for that family and pedigree, maybe I have to go back to work and mount additional evidence to provide a greater foundational strength for that evidence. And Victoria, I hope you have a wonderful Easter weekend. And yes, almost no snow. We have just a little bit of snow on the ground. Michelle, and I'm seeing I lost track of the time, and we're almost at the top of the hour. So it does look like, Michelle, you get the last one. And so, Michelle, you're welcome. I love taking all of your questions. You were diagnosed 6 years ago with what's called a VUS on the gene KCNQ1. I'll unpack that in a second. Your adult children have been tested, and your daughter has the same VUS and is also symptomatic. The pediatric EPs will not test my granddaughters or my 10-year-old son because of the VUS. Is this normal? Oh, I love this question. I can't wait for Julie to transcribe it. It's one that drives me crazy. So let's start with a couple things on this, and I can see if I can do it in 2 minutes and under. So we know without a doubt that true disease causative variants in KCNQ1, which is the gene that builds a critical potassium channel in the heart called KV7.1, is the #1 cause of long QT syndrome, LQT1. Now, does that mean that every single genetic variant that might occur in that gene is disease causative? No. Some are benign, and we know that, of no consequence. Others are stuck in ambiguity with the VUS label, variant of uncertain significance, by the genetic test company. Meaning they do their drill, they run it through their algorithm, and the body of evidence only lets them call it, we're not sure, otherwise known as a VUS. Now, that's their declaration. That's not mine. So if I was evaluating you, for example, or somebody like you and your daughter, and I would be looking at your objective non-genetic tests, and if I concluded from those objective tests, in fact, even before I ordered the buccal swab or the blood draw to do the genetic testing, I said, look, Michelle, in this case, I actually think you have long QT syndrome, and I think you have LQT1. And I'm making that prediction based upon your story, your ECG, what your treadmill shows. In that context, and I don't know what your context is, if the genetic test company says all we can call that variant in the LQT1 gene is a VUS, I say thank you very much. It's not a VUS. It is the cause. No doubt. Almost no doubt. In other words, we have been doing what we have called at Mayo Clinic phenotype enhanced variant interpretation, for which genetic test companies do not have that ability because they don't have the package of the phenotype. They might have some words, they might have some notes, but they're not the phenotyper. So when I can look at your test and already know that, boy, that person looks like LQT1, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, probably a duck kind of thing, that in that setting, if I'm thinking LQT1 and then the genetic test gives me a VUS in the LQT1 gene, I say, thank you, genetic test company, promotion. VUS is the likely pathogenic variant. Now, in your situation, I don't know what your phenotype looks like. I don't know if I would stare at your and your daughter's ECG, Holter, echo, treadmill, would I be sitting there thinking a priori, this family is an LQT1 family? So the classification may be stuck as a VUS, in which case, yeah, maybe it's reasonable not to test the grandchildren. But if I'm hedging that with one of those he said, she said, he said phenomena, meaning company says VUS, I say LQT1, then of course I would be testing your grandchildren because I'm not beholden to the genetic test company's interpretation or label as a VUS any more than I'm beholden to looking at the ECG report and saying, I agree with that QTC. No, I interpret it, I measure it. And that's one of the big issues, Michelle, that we have. It's a big, big problem that we have in genetic medicine in general and genetic cardiology, is taking genetic test information and learning how to decode it and not just do literacy. Interpreting a genetic test report isn't just reading the report, it is interpreting it. We could have a whole program on that. In fact, coming up in 13 days is a webinar, and SADS Foundation put it out, from the Genetic Testing Alliance. I think you'll like it. I'm going to be answering questions during it. I don't know if there'll be some surprise questions like Julie did for me earlier, but the genetic testing community knows that we have a lot of work to do. Anyway, that's a wrap. And as we close, I will see you in 13 days because we're going to do our next SADS Live on Thursday of April 20th. See how I did that math, instead of the Friday, because I will have just landed. So until then, all the best to you. And it's a great Friday because it's the last day of these, but it's a great Friday because today is Good Friday. And pause for those of us there who celebrate the birth, death, and resurrection of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. We know that today, tomorrow, Sunday is the holiest of weekends in the church tradition of Christianity, where because the price that our Savior paid on Good Friday with his death, taking upon himself my sin, and then rising and conquering and destroying the grave, on the third day with Easter Sunday. He is risen. He is risen indeed. So for those of you who are looking forward to Easter Sunday and all that it means, that gives us hope, the true hope that we can have. Blessings to all of you. And if Christianity is not you and Easter is just another Sunday, the same blessing to you as well. You are loved. And from us at the SADS Foundation, we appreciate and are grateful for the privilege of interacting and intersecting in your lives. So until next time, blessings.